My ace boon coons, welcome to this special part 2 on Bayer drugs, the highly anticipated part 2 of Bayer mother effing drugs. Yes, the Bayer drugs that made the rat of the week on MSNBC. Go figure, MSNBC did a special on Bayer drugs. Well, anyway, Bayer drugs has been poisoning you. Bayer drugs has been, I hope I don't get banned for this, but the truth's got to be put out there. Anyway, at least Bayer drugs warns you of the risks of taking their medication. How in-depth, how accurate are their warnings? I'll leave that up to you to decide. But remember, Bayer drugs was putting HIV into some of their hemophilia medication, infected thousands, if not millions of people, had a stockpile left, got sued for infecting people with AIDS, and then with the stockpile, they didn't burn it, they didn't get rid of it, they sent it over to Europe and South America and infected more people. What was the purpose of that? Knowingly infecting people? I'll leave that up to you to decide. It sounds fake. It sounds like a conspiracy, but this is all true. You just got to care. You just got to care to know. Do your own research. Don't listen to me. I'll just put what I know out there. You know what I mean? But this is a very fascinating series. Bayer drugs, Monsanto, FDA. We're on your ass.
These days, many diseases can be effectively alleviated or even cured by taking the appropriate medication. There are drugs available which, for example, lower blood pressure, reduce blood glucose, or treat cancer. In the USA, patients are prescribed an average of 12 different drugs a year. Those over the age of 65, as many as 28. Since all drugs can cause side effects, physicians individually weigh up the expected benefits against the possible risks for every patient. Side effects can vary greatly. They range from minor symptoms such as nausea, headaches, or skin rashes to more serious side effects like heart rhythm disorders or liver damage. In worst cases, they can even be fatal. It is often impossible to predict whether side effects will occur. They can be caused, for example, by individual genetic factors.
That's true, but I do believe they are very predictable on when they will take place, when the side effects and symptoms will take place. Guaranteed, bro. They've done enough studies to know this shit.
Interactions with other drugs or foodstuffs can also trigger side effects. Unfortunately, side effects can never be completely ruled out. Fortunately, serious side effects tend to be quite uncommon in most patients. In other words, more people benefit from a therapy than suffer from serious side effects.
A therapy, not a cure, even though there's got to be cures for entertainment purposes. Entertainment purposes only, whoever's listening. Anyway, there is a cure. There's got to be a cure. Where's all my research money going? Where's all these taxes going that are benefiting cancer and disease research? Come on now. Come on.
In any case, patients should be aware of the benefits and potential risks before taking a drug. So, always read the information leaflet to find out about possible side effects and ask your doctor or pharmacist whenever needed. When talking to a doctor, don't forget to mention any other medicines you might be taking. You should also consider whether other diseases have occurred in your family's history. And only take drugs that have been prescribed for you personally. All approved drugs benefit from the fact that data about their wanted and unwanted effects has been evaluated. Such important data collection continues also after a drug has been introduced. This information is incorporated into the information leaflet and helps you to understand the benefits and the risks of taking the medicine. And again, don't forget to ask your doctor or pharmacist about the benefits and risks when a drug is prescribed to you. If you have questions, you can find information on the internet websites of health authorities or medicine regulators in your country. The physician or pharmacist can also answer your questions.
Yeah, we get it. All right. So yeah, data is collected forever. They never stop collecting data because they need to know if you're dying fast enough. I mean, for entertainment purposes only. For entertainment purposes only. Come on now. Now this is not a this is not homophobic, this is not transphobic, this is for entertainment and educational purposes. And like the man in this video says, this should be a sign that we're moving too far, too fast. You know what I mean? I'm gonna read this video. I'm gonna let this play actually. But my beef is with the ever-growing medical industry. How deceptive they've always been since the days of the Nazis, the Nazi era, when they were, ordering Jews into the concentration camps just to run tests on them, and how that culture ended up here in the United States, and we just test our own citizens with medications, and lie to them about the symptoms and the consequences of what this so-called medicine and science uh has, it has a negative effect on us. And they've been lying to us. They lie way too much. I'm sorry for stumbling on this one, but listen to this. This is not necessarily Bayer drugs, but the medical industry, part 2.
Oh, dear God.
National Health Services of England announces changes
Let's see what
to
happens with
trans
this.
policies.
National Health Services of England. Most trans kids are going through a phase. Quote, "You can expect this breaking news to be quickly banned all over social media and labeled as misinformation, despite the fact that it's coming directly from the government of Great Britain. The National Health Services of England, in a rare demonstration, has released an advisory saying that most children who believe they are transgender are simply going through a phase, quote unquote. As they mature, they are further recommending that doctors stop encouraging such children to change their names and pronouns. Going even further, they plan to announce a ban on administration of puberty-blocking drugs for pediatric patients, except in, quote, strict clinical trials, quote. In a sterile fashion, the National Health Services declare that the changes are needed because there is currently scarce and inconclusive evidence to support clinical decision-making." That's from the Telegraph.
Right.
This is not anti-trans. This is a conversation regarding we may be moving too far too fast. National Health Service has services of this nature would be overseen by medical doctors rather than therapists. And the most meaningful comment is the National Health Service is advising doctors to be aware of this sort of gender confusion is typically a transient phase, and in most cases, gender incongruence does not persist into adolescence. They point out the widespread nature of these issues as well. In 2011 to 2012, they handled 250 cases of referrals to gender identity services. In 2021 and 22, the number skyrocketed to more than 5,000. No one is denying the existence of trans people. But under no circumstances can you be oblivious to the fact that something has changed in the world. Were there always a huge undercurrent of trans people out there, and now we're free to speak? Or is this a fad? Let's find out. What do you think?
Yeah. Good stuff. Anyway, it's not a fad. as the National Health Service is trying to project that it's just a phase that trans people going through the transition go through. It's a phase that they start regretting doing it. But it is there's a study that shows 100% of the people who transition actually regret it. And 100% of the people who transition have suicidal thoughts, if not suicide itself. 100%. 100% regret it. This is wild to me. This is wild. You're messing with our children, dude. Now let me read what actually happened here. So the U.S. also needs to adopt this policy. Kira Bell started transitioning at the age of 16. She has now detransitioned. She sued the National Health Service's gender clinic, saying she was too young to understand the life-alerting consequences for that one choice. In interviews, she has said the clinic made it sound like all her problems would be solved by taking the drugs and doing the surgery, when in reality, her issues stemmed from not being a man in a woman's body, but from multiple other childhood traumas. She was too young and believed that this one thing would fix her. She now has to live with dire consequences from her transition. She probably will never have children. She will never be able to breastfeed those children if she even can have them. Facial hair and a voice that is altered for life. Fortunately, she won the case against the clinic, and her lawsuit prompted a deep dive into the policies around children transitioning. What they found was that there was no clinical data to support that children have the mental capacity to make these decisions. Hence the change in policy in the United Kingdom, EU, European Union. I fully support adults who want to transition. I do not support children making that decision. Many trans people and detransition trans are fighting to stop allowing children to make the decision to transitioning because they know mentally a child cannot make that decision, which is basic common sense if you ask me. Amen. All right. The medical industry, dude. NHS, the what's the other one called? The CDC, Center for Disease Control, NHS, National Health Services, DHS, you name it. Anyway, are they here to help? It seems like whenever they want to run tests or do a deep dive into symptoms and decision making, it's because of a lawsuit that they received, or it's too late. I don't know. All right. Bayer Drugs. Here's a reminder of what Bayer Drugs is all about. The meat and potatoes.
Next month marks 32 years since the Centers for Disease Control first acknowledged that medicine meant to treat the disease hemophilia was actually infecting people with the HIV virus. This outbreak among hemophiliacs in the early 80s infected between 6,000 and 10,000 people, despite the fact that pharmaceutical companies, chiefly pharma giant Bayer, knew the plasma they were using to create their blood clotting product was tainted. So here to discuss this harrowing anniversary and what the case tells us about corporate accountability today, I'm joined now by attorney, host of Ring of Fire Radio, Mike Papantonio. Thanks so much, Mike, for coming on.
Happy good to be here.
So for those that don't know about this case, can you quickly explain how Bayer was able to sell HIV-contaminated blood products to the public and how early Bayer knew about the problem?
Well, they knew about it within a year and a half after the product was on the market. They knew there was some contamination in the blood that was causing some very serious illness. And they said, well, gee, we didn't know that was HIV. We didn't know it was AIDS. Well, they did. All they had to do was do basic testing even at that point. But what's worse is once they knew that whatever it was in the blood was killing people, they said, you know what, we're going to take it off the market here. And then they immediately started selling in places like South America and Asia, where people actually went to prison. You had actually people working for the companies overseas going to prison. Nobody went to prison here. They killed thousands of people. They knowingly killed thousands of people. Because you know why? Because they said, we have all of this stuff in stock. We have to do something with it. So what are we going to do? We're going to sell it to a place where nobody knows about it. And so you'd have children that would infect the entire family with the AIDS virus. And interestingly enough, again, nobody went to prison in the United States.
Wow, I guess just a bunch of market casualties there, huh? I mean, wow, what an unbelievable criminal act here. Why were there no criminal charges against top executives at the company in this own country?
Well, at that point, they had started developing a lobby. I actually handled part of that case, and they sent so much lobby money to Washington, D.C., that the Department of Justice didn't do what they should have done. But we're seeing this with designer drug products that are killing and crippling consumers, Abby, all over the United States. Typically, they make it to the market with the same steps. First, the industry capitalizes on direct-to-consumer advertising laws that are only good in the United States and Australia, where they can tell a consumer, hey, use our drug, use our factor 8 drug, and it'll solve your problem with clotting. And then that's direct-to-consumer advertising that you don't see anywhere else. So they create the need for the market. They even go as far as creating diseases sometimes. They create diagnosable diseases that we've never even heard of before. Turn on your TV on most days and you'll see drugs being hustled for everything ranging from restless feet to restless eyes, for God's sakes. Feeling old, you take testosterone gel. Feeling underperformer, you take Viagra. Feeling sad, mad, or overly glad, you pop a pink pill or two and you're good as new. The first step for any accomplished drug hustler is to create the need for this endless market with an advertising blitz, and that's the new designer drug approach. That's only the first step. And the first step, too, of course, is to hustle the FDA and use the FDA insiders that you're paying money to indirectly to go to work.
What a mess. I mean, this is just so insane, though, because, I mean, knowingly infecting people and then sending it to developing countries that you know is tainted medication here that could cause HIV. I mean, it's just a whole nother level of insanity here, Mike. I mean, you've called it a rogue operation. I wanted you to talk first about why you called it that, and then also how the notion of corporate personhood plays into these type of cases.
Yeah, in many countries, when a company does this type of thing, they lose their right to be a corporate person. They get the death penalty. Abby, they're told you can't do business in here. You're a repeat offender. Bayer has more repeat offending fines and criminal sanctions of any company I've ever worked against, and I've been doing this for 30 years. They're all equally bad in one way or another. But the point is, until you say to a company,
Bayer has the most repeat offender lawsuits, the most repeat offender returns to court, and return offender citations, more than any other company, well, that he's ever worked with, but I'm willing to bet than more than any other company in the world. Bayer, mother effing drugs. You're local, you're international, legal drug dealers. I said it. I hope I don't get banned for this. This is for educational purposes only. You know what I'm saying? Come on, we're just educating and putting out facts. As you can see, this is not made up. This is not a conspiracy. It is just to make you very aware. Now, back to the repeat offender thing. How in the world are you still in business? How in the world, dude? Not even a name change. So blatant. And why? Why do something so evil knowingly? This is an 8-year-old video. This was 30 years ago. This is 40 years. This has been swept under the rug, but we're here to bring it back, buddy, because Bayer Drugs is still in power. They're still showing their face. They didn't even bother changing their name or shit, not even an apology, I don't think, dude.
Company. You do this once, we're going to maybe look the other way. You do it twice, you're going to lose your license to do business. Until we do that, you're always going to have that criminal culture. They're a rogue company in many ways, but now it's kind of the regular way of doing business in the United States. It's called big risk and quick profits. MBA.
I like what he said right there. I'm going to run it back 10 seconds. Let me see here. 440, 450. 10 seconds. Listen to what he says about the culture that Bayer Drugs has introduced to the world.
They're a rogue company in many ways, but now it's kind of the regular way of doing business in the United States. It's called big risk and quick profits. MBAs come out of school and they're moving through. They take a position on the board of a company like Bayer. They know they're only going to be there for a few years, so they break every rule they can. They push the law to the max, and they make as much money as they can in bonuses, and then they leave the mess for the next CEO to come along. Wow. It's the new way of doing business. It is the new model for pharmaceutical companies nowadays. Used to be a CEO would stay with the company, AbbVie, for 25, 30 years. Not anymore. They're young kids, MBAs, moving through, trying to grab up as much profit as they can. The decisions they make most of the time are criminal. And I don't overstate that. They are criminal decisions, and we look the other way and say it's okay for you to do that. It's just the way we're doing business in the United States.
But it's just insane, Mike, and I don't think a lot of people realize that there's only direct-to-consumer advertising with pharmaceutical companies here in New Zealand. So it really is this kind of, in terms of big pharma, I mean, this is a very, very unique problem here in America. I mean, a study just came out by author Brandon Garrett that examined 303 non-prosecution, deferred prosecution deals between corporations and the government between 2001 and 2014, and found that only 34% of the time was an individual charged with a crime, and of those, only 42% received any jail time. I mean, obviously, this Bayer thing happened long before the corporate personhood thing. I mean, how did our judicial system evolve to treat corporate crime so differently than street crime?
Well, it became a matter of money. There was a time when the pharmaceutical industry, and it was right around the time of this Bayer case we're talking about, that they figured out if we give the same amount of money to Democrats as we do to Republicans, then we've covered ourselves on both ways. For example, Loretta Lynch, the new AG that Obama's trying to push through. Democrats are looking like, oh, this woman's wonderful. Well, she's not wonderful. She's simply a corporate hack, just like the other people that have come before her. But the industry, the drug industry, figured out we have to cover both sides of the aisle, so they started spreading around huge money to Democrats, just like Republicans, and they passed laws that allowed them to do things like direct-to-consumer advertising. They passed laws to make it almost impossible to meet the criminal threshold for a white-collar criminal.
And mind you, direct-to-consumer advertising is only legal in two places: America, USA, and New Zealand. In case you didn't know, there's a fun fact of the day. Corporate drug advertising is only legal in America and New Zealand. That's all you need to know.
Who's dressed up in an Armani suit. And so they made it so difficult to where these guys running these companies, they don't feel any risk at all. They feel no risk at all because they say, yeah, we're a person, but we're a person that's so big that you can't put us in jail because you can't pinpoint who made the decision.
I'm going to run that back. I'm going to run that back because the past 60 seconds that this man was talking, he was spitting nothing but facts. Nothing but facts, guys. Run it back. Run it back.
Money. There was a time when the pharmaceutical industry...
Monies. I'm going to run it back.
I mean, obviously, this Bayer thing happened.
One more time. I am so sorry. Read that. Professor Garrett, in corporate crimes, individuals' accountability is elusive. Professor Garrett analyzed 303 non-prosecution and deferred prosecution agreements with corporations from 2001 to 2014, in which companies avoided guilty pleas by paying fines and agreeing to other measures. He found that individuals were charged in only 34% of the cases, and of those, only 42% perceived any jail time. Wow. Mind-blowing, right? Now listen to what he says next. Very important because it is political. All right. You wonder how people get into office? It doesn't matter who you vote for, dude. All right. Let's not be stupid and naive. Okay. Put your emotions to a side. How do people get into office? Lobbyists. Who are the biggest lobbyists? Medical.
I mean, obviously, this Bayer thing happened long before the corporate personhood thing. I
Hear
mean,
this
how
again.
did our judicial system evolve to treat corporate crime so differently than street crime?
Well, it became a matter of money. There was a time when the pharmaceutical industry, and it was right around the time of this Bayer case we're talking about, that they figured out if we give the same amount of money to Democrats as we do to Republicans, then we've covered ourselves on both ways. For example, Loretta Lynch, the new AG that Obama's trying to push through. Democrats are looking like, oh, this woman's wonderful. Well, she's not wonderful. She's simply a corporate hack, just like the other people that have come before her. But the industry, the drug industry, figured out we have to cover both sides of the aisle, so they started spreading around huge money to Democrats, just like Republicans, and they passed laws that allowed them to do things like direct-to-consumer advertising. They passed laws to make it almost impossible to meet the criminal threshold for a white-collar criminal who's dressed up in an Armani suit. And so they made it so difficult to where these guys running these companies, they don't feel any risk at all. They feel no risk at all because they say, yeah, we're a person, but we're a person that's so big that you can't put us in jail because you can't pinpoint who made the decision.
Unbelievable. Thank goodness for lawyers like you who are taking on these real criminals. We need to end it to true justice. And Mike Papantonio, host of Ring of Fire Radio. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Evan.
Papantonio. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. Moving on. All right. Bayer drugs. Mind you, if I am not mistaken, I will fact check this in just a minute. Bayer drugs merged with Monsanto. Yes, the two major corporations, one in drugs and the other in agriculture, have merged together. For what? What are they known for? Lawsuits, paying out lawsuits. Tons of people being gone off this earth because of their product. Tons of people infected with HIV, as we just learned from Bayer drugs. All right, you want to hear something? Want to see something insane? Listen to this. If you ever see this on a shelf, obviously you see the TSC right here. That's the Tractor Supply Company. You can get this there. Farmworks. I believe this is a, if I'm not mistaken, it's a Bayer product. Absolutely insane. Anyone can walk in and buy this stuff. Bayer is currently paying out an $11 billion settlement for giving tons of people cancer with it. But your neighbors can still force you to inhale it anytime they want. I'm not sure, don't quote me if this is a Bayer product, but it is something that Monsanto and Bayer still sells and still allows it on your shelf, even though they have billions of dollars to pay out because of glyphosate. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Glyphosate, glyphosate. You get it. Weed killer. Surprise, motherfucker. All right. This next one, Francis A. Boyle, an expert on biological weapons. This video is, let's see. This video is from June 2024. Very good possibility that this might be an older video. But anyway, if anything is going to get me banned, it might be this right here. All right. So pay close attention. And YouTube, this is good. This goes out sincerely. My hat's off to you, YouTube. Thank you for making such a great platform. But dude, come on. This is America. Let us talk about what we want to talk about without having to use keywords. Come on, please. This is freedom of speech. Let's practice that, like, wholesomely, fully, to the fullest extent. Of course, don't talk about, killing people and shit like that. But let us say what we want to say if it's in our hearts. Come on. Love you guys. Come on, because we're gonna get this out there one way or another. Come on, you. I want it to be you, YouTube, that helps us get the truth out there, or you know, the awesome entertainment that, you know, a lot of people follow and believe. You know, come on, it makes us happy. Make the world a better place. Let's shoot for wholesome, un un what's the word I'm looking, unintentional truth. All right, or storytelling, however you want to look at it. It's just freedom of, let's talk about this and let us make our own decisions. Let us make our own minds up. Okay, stop trying to make our minds up. I'm not saying you're doing that. All right, anyway, this video is very, very, very good. Sorry for my rant. I love you, YouTube. Come on, stop with the banning. Don't stop canceling my videos. It's been like 2 videos already. You guys said that I said something that was off the wall. One was a UFC thing. Anyway, just a short clip of UFC. I got banned. YouTube, come on now. I love you. We're bigger than that. We're better than that. Anyway, listen to this. Make up your own mind is all I'm saying.
I think you're right. I think that, as I've recommended before, Stu, anyone could go in and file a complaint with a law enforcement authority for murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and demand that people be arrested and prosecuted. And by the way, I did want to draw to the attention of your audience this press release 2013, where these messenger RNA Frankenshots come from. DARPA awards Moderna Therapeutics a grant for up to $25 million to develop messenger RNA therapeutics. So notice DARPA is the Pentagon. Let me repeat that. DARPA is the Pentagon. The Pentagon bought, paid for, envisioned these mRNA Frankenshots. And I should also point out, Fort Detrick was involved in the development of COVID-19, the offensive biological warfare weapon at the University of North Carolina, BSL-3. So the Pentagon is both sides of the argument here. They're developing the weapon and the alleged vaccines, which is also a weapon. But the proof is right here.
So there's not a law, as far as we understand from where we sit, in this country, federal level, state level, municipal level, that protects anybody from deploying a weapon of biowarfare. It doesn't give them any kind of liability shield. There's no immunity to liability in a sense. So wouldn't it be true that this narrative about congressional liability for Pfizer is kind of a psyop?
That's correct, Stu. The liability, that deals with civil liability, payment of damages. Here, we are talking about criminal responsibility. And in my book, Resisting Medical Tyranny, I outline the case for why the executives involved in the companies developing these mRNA Frankenshots are guilty of murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Yes. And you saw that report last week from Portugal that upwards of 300,000 Americans now have been murdered as a result of these mRNA Frankenshots. So this is quite serious. We cannot tolerate more Americans getting murdered by the Nazis who run these corporations. And if you look at the jab resolution, clearly what we have here is twofold. A violation of the Nuremberg Code on medical.
Y'all not ready for this. YouTube, definitely not ready for this. I'm rolling the dice right here. YouTube, please accept my apology and bless this video. Let it be fruitful. Love ya.
Experimentation, exactly what the United States government prosecuted Nazi doctors for at Nuremberg. and some were executed. Now, I'm against the death penalty, so okay. But that gives you the idea of how severe the situation is. And then second, as the JAB resolution correctly says, this is a Nuremberg crime against humanity. And Stu, since this is so important, let me read for you the definition of a Nuremberg crime against humanity. This was put in the Nuremberg Charter by the United States to deal with the Nazi persecution of German Jews. Let me read this here.
Yeah, please.
Crimes against humanity, murder, extermination, and other inhumane acts committed against any civilian population. The American people are being treated here like the Nazis treated German Jews. 300,000 are now dead. When are we going to stop this?
Yeah, what is the threshold for death?
Bro, that's what I was saying. But can you say, what's wrong with saying that? It's logically true. We're the only country that allows pharmaceutical advertising, and the Nazis would order Jews to run experiments on their new drugs on. What is the difference? What's the difference? They're not called Nazis anymore? The same shit, different Nazi.
Exactly. That brings me to another point. So you're talking about the executives at the companies that help to manufacture and then distribute these shots. What about the people inside of our government? They wouldn't be immune from criminal liability either. They ordered this up, in a sense, didn't they?
That's correct. That would depend on certainly the FDA that has approved these Frankenshots. They violated the Nuremberg Code on Medical Experimentation and have committed a Nuremberg crime against humanity, and arguably are responsible for, or could be indicted for murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Again, that requires mens rea on their part and malice aforethought. My book basically dealt with the chief executive officers and the chief scientific officers for the mRNA Frankenshots. But yes, the FDA officials who approved it have accountability as well. I should also point out, Stu, that the FDA itself was involved in the development of COVID-19 as an offensive biological warfare weapon at the UNC BSL-3. Let me read to you the contract. And it says who helped develop this thing, among others.
You mean to tell me all I have to do is read? First of all I have to do is care to know? Fair enough.
National Center for Toxicological Research, Food and Drug Administration. So the same people, the FDA, the same agency that is approving these Frankenshots, these Nazi Frankenshots, have been involved in the development of COVID-19.
This man's a menace. I love you. I love a good menace.
An offensive biological warfare weapon with gain-of-function properties that were applied at the University of North Carolina BSL-3, Stu.
With Ralph Barrick's involvement, this is where Ralph Barrick comes in.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. So, and then what about moving downhill to the CDC, who recommended these, who is adding them to the childhood vaccination schedule? What about the media, who ran with the safe and effective narrative? Fox is still airing commercials. It's time for your next booster. Go get your next booster. These people clearly, the BBC hitting me all the time, saying that I'm a conspiracy theorist, a radical conspiracy theorist on these shots. What about accountability for these people as well?
This guy is a conspiracy theorist, by the way. You're a conspiracy theorist. No one believes you, but this is for educational purposes only. You guys are grown enough to make up your own mind. This is not for kids. Come on now.
I think the CDC also has accountability. The current director, Walensky, Biden appointed, she's from the Harvard Medical School. Harvard Medical School is also involved in the development of the COVID-19 at the UNC-BSL-3 with Ralph Barrick, along with the FDA. The CDC has been up to its eyeballs in offensive biological warfare weapons going back to the Reagan administration, when the Reagan administration authorized the CDC and American type culture collection to ship 40 shipments of weapons they knew were weapon-specific biological warfare agents to Saddam Hussein in Iraq, in the hope and expectation that he would weaponize them and use them against Iran. And then U.S. troops, after Gulf War I, went in there, blew these biowarfare labs up, and contaminated themselves.
Are there politicians, are there members of our federal government, I'm talking about, in the House of Representatives or in the United States Senate, that are on committees that had the intel about this gain-of-function weapon of biowarfare being, manufactured, concocted, and whipped up at Fort Detrick, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, that the FDA was involved? I mean, ostensibly, it would seem to me that there would be people inside of our government that would know and have a forethought that this was going to happen.
I think Senator Rand Paul, from what I've seen, is the one who has the best comprehension of what's going on here.
But did they know beforehand? Did they know that this was going to be developed at the time? I mean, would they have known this? Would they have received intel documents that said, hey, we're going to make a weapon of biowarfare here in the United States. We're going to ship it offshore, and then we're going to release it on the world population?
Well, Stu, I've been saying this for many years. If you take a look at there's a award-winning documentary called Anthrax Wars 2009 by Cohn and Nadler. You can get it online, dealing with the existential dangers presented by these BSL-3s and BSL-4s. And they asked me, because of my expertise, to consult with them. And at the end of this documentary, I say in the starkest terms possible, this is a catastrophe waiting to happen, unquote. Now, that was 2009. So, yes, at least my viewpoints on these matters have been out there in the public record. Indeed, in 2001, I was the first to blow the whistle on the fact that Amerithrax came out of a U.S. biological warfare weapon and weapons program and laboratory. That was November 3 at Harvard Divinity School, where the Council for Responsible Genetics was holding its convention, and I was conducting a workshop against biological warfare weapons. I said that to Fox TV, November 3. The next day, or the Monday after that, I said it to Pacific Radio Network. And then I was on the BBC. The whole world heard me. And then I was censored off of everywhere after that point.
Francis
An order was
Boyle
given.
censored
and
off of
no
everywhere.
mainstream news media, Western mainstream news media has ever interviewed me again.
I wonder why.
So I'm going to ask you to speculate here a little bit, and I know that you like to stick with facts, but what is the gain for the people who whipped this up and then released it? What is the gain for DARPA, the Pentagon, Ralph Barrick, Fauci, EcoHealth Alliance, Peter Daszak? What is the end goal here, I guess? What's the end game?
The juicy stuff.
I think it's population control and reduction, Stu.
They would never.
If you read the reports now,
They would never do that.
Worldwide, there have been excess deaths of about 12 million people. So I think that's the ultimate goal. Remember, that goes back to the infamous national security directive by Henry Kissinger, that it is in the national security interest of the United States for our policy to be population control and reduction. I've never read that was released. And then, of course, everyone's making large amounts of money off of this as well.
Yeah, you might want to rewind that part right there and get you some sources out of that. Pause it.
As a lawyer, you represented world governments in the International Court of Justice. Why wouldn't any of our, I mean, so you're no hack. Why wouldn't any of our elected representatives in the Senate or Congress take you seriously when you're warning about this? Why would they write you off like that?
I believe they've been threatened. I've been in touch with members of Congress about this matter and sued them after they were threatened. For example, the one member of Congress was consulting me on one matter, and I raised with him the Ebola pandemic in West Africa. Walter Jones, he was a very powerful member of the House Armed Services Committee. He was consulting me on another matter, getting my legal opinion. And since he represented Fort Bragg down there where everyone were being deployed, I said, Congressman, he knew my expertise. I said, Congressman Jones, this West African Ebola pandemic came out of the Kenema BSL-4. It's extremely dangerous. And I think you've got to do something to keep your troops there from being deployed by the Obama administration as a propaganda stunt. It's extremely dangerous. This is biological warfare at work.
All right. I think there's going to be a part 3. It's 45. I'm at 45, 46 minutes right now, guys. I hope I'm not boring you. All right. It's getting good. It's getting good to the point. I'm going somewhere with this. You need to know that. I'm going somewhere with the history of our medical industry. It's good to know. It's good to know the history of all these major big players, Bayer, Pfizer, CDC, even, as you can see, even it gets pretty deep. All right, I'm going somewhere with this. Stay tuned for a part 3. Okay, I'm gonna see how much more time left on this video, but I'll be right back. All right, so there's 4 more minutes left on this video, guys, and I'm gonna play it for you. All right, but after that, I'm out of here. Stay tuned for part 3 on the history of our medical history and Bayer drugs. What should I title this? I'm thinking demonic or fair business practice? ?
We discussed the matter, and then he said, I'll get on it right away. I'll put my top staffer in touch with you, and we'll get on this right away, because these were his constituents. What happened? I was completely cut off. Obviously, someone had threatened Congressman Jones. He no longer returned my phone calls, no emails, no messages, no one in his staff either.
So they're writing him off everywhere. Fucking all platforms, social media, the CDC. Now Congress is writing him off. He's too much. He's too much. He's messing with their money. Yeah, that's what I'm getting out of that.
Now, who would be able to threaten an extremely powerful member of the House Armed Services Committee to not even act on behalf of his own constituents there? And what was that threat? I don't know. But this personally happened to me, yes. And even after Congressman Jones died, I sent condolences to his office. They didn't even acknowledge receipt of my condolences.
Well, I'll accept
I think we probably know why.
For him, Mr. Boyle.
Certainly not every
man.
sheriff has been gotten to. Do you think that that's the course of action here, is for citizens to go to their sheriff and report that they've been assaulted with a weapon of biowarfare?
Yes. And also go to your district attorney, state's attorney, county attorney. I'm dealing with the county attorney down there at Collier County. He's involved in drafting their health freedom declaration. We're making progress.
And then there needs to be an enforcement mechanism in that resolution for how we move forward and what we do with the people who are responsible for this deployment, and then what we do with the stockpiles of this deployment. I think it's pretty clear at this point. I mean, it needs to be seized, it needs to be incinerated, and then the people responsible for it need to be put on trial and handed down sentences.
That's not to excuse the Chinese Communist government. They knew full well they were developing an existentially dangerous offensive biological warfare weapon with gain of function properties, with HIV DNA genetically engineered into there, and that was subjected to nanotechnology to aerosolize it. This stuff will travel up to 30 feet in the air. So I'm not excusing them at all, but they were developing it.
The Wuhan
they have
Institute of
to be
Virology then is, by definition, a bioweapons lab.
Pardon me?
The Wuhan Institute of Virology then, by definition, is a bioweapons lab.
Oh, yeah, that's China's Fort Detrick, Stu. What happened was, obviously, President Xi there decided that he wanted to play with the big boys, and the big boys had a BSL-4 like we do, our Fort Detrick, or the British at Porton Down, and he was going to have his own BSL-4 and his own panoply of offensive biological warfare weapons, just as bad as anything we have. Right.
Funded by the U.S. taxpayer, and there's no shortage of that going on around the world either, as we have reported on this program ad nauseum. Dozens of these bioweapons labs, just like the Institute of Virology in Wuhan, located in Ukraine, where we're sending hundreds of billions of dollars, and now we're getting reports about the same happening in Taiwan. Interestingly enough, the military-industrial complex wants U.S. boots on the ground there. Lindsey Graham, the Pfizer whore, the fossil in the D.C. Beltway there, is advocating for U.S. boots on the ground in Taiwan. Seems that they know where all of the bodies are buried, Professor Boyle. Thank you so much for coming here. We certainly appreciate it.
Lindsey Graham, you go over there yourself. Handle that. Handle your business, buddy. All right. So Francis Boyle, the man you just heard talking right here, this beautiful soul, let me give you a little background on him. He's an American human rights lawyer, first of all. 74 years old, all right? Born in March. Probably Aquarius like me, that's why he's so cool. Anyway, his education comes from Harvard, the University of Chicago, and Harvard Law School. All right, Francis Anthony Boyle is an American human rights lawyer and professor of international law, all right, at the University of Illinois College of Law. He has served as counsel for Bosnia and Herzegovina and has supported the rights of Palestinians and indigenous peoples, all right, to say the least. Anyway, he's a fair dude. He seems like he knows what he's talking about. I'm not saying I believe him. I'm not telling you to believe it. I'm telling you to listen, follow up on those sources that he put out for us, and stay tuned for part 3 of the history of Bayer and our medical industry. All right, love you. God bless you. Jeremiah 17:5, baby. Damned is the man who puts his trust in a man. Lord, we ask that you guide us for the rest of our days. Thank you. Amen. I love you so much, my God. Thank you.